From Toronto, Canada, The Conspiracy Show with Richard Serrett from Zoomer Radio, AM 740.
And welcome to the Audio Imaginarium. Come on in, weary traveler. Hang your cloak on a peg, grab a stool, and come gather around the fire. There are stories to be told, and you are among friends. About time to actually light a fire. It's getting cool. Autumn is in the air. Well, it's arrived. But it certainly feels a little bit more like the fall up here, just north of Toronto in Old Thornhill Village. Carlos Cagina is my technical producer. Ryan White is my live stream producer, and we are indeed live streaming on my YouTube channel, Strange Planet. Be sure to hit that red sub button. We're over 25,000 members now. I had a great time hosting Coast to Coast last night. Not sure if you were able to catch that. It's difficult now up in Toronto, Ontario. I don't know that there are any affiliates that carry Coast anymore up here. I know they're looking for a home in Toronto. However, and I get emails every week, how can I listen to Coast in Ontario? And what I suggest you do is go on the coasttocoastam.com website and go to under media, I think. It's listed under media and then local stations. And just find an affiliate, any affiliate, actually. I happen to listen to an affiliate out of Bowling Green, Kentucky. And then what you do is if you have the app, Simple Radio, find that station on Simple Radio, and then you can stream it. You have to use your mobile device or your tablet. It's not the good old Philco on the kitchen counter anymore, folks, but, you know, that's the best way to get it done. Anyway, I mentioned in Coast last night, and JJ French, or John French was with me in the first hour, founding member of Twisted Sister. And if that wasn't your era, the early 80s, Twisted Sister sold something like 20 million albums, performed 9,000 live shows in about 40 countries, and JJ, as it turns out, is a fan of the Conspiracy Show. He's just released what he calls a bizmoir. I like that, bizmoir. Half memoir and half business book. And Twisted Business is the name of it. Twisted Business: Lessons from My Life in Rock and Roll. And I'm almost finished the book. The first half of the book is about his life. Growing up Jewish in New York City in the 50s and 60s, his determination from an early age to become a rock star after seeing, of course, the Beatles perform on the Ed Sullivan Show in February '64. And then he started dealing drugs and taking drugs and had a number of close calls, horrible episodes, overdoses, things that very easily could have gone south, ended his life. But he quit dealing and using cold turkey and put his mind to the business of rock and roll. And then the second half of the book is about the business of show business and life lessons he learned after Twisted Sister formed in '73, and then there are 10 years of absolute struggle. There is a lesson about tenacity and stick-to-itiveness and hanging in there. 10 years of struggle and rejection. My word, rejection after rejection before finally signing with Atlantic Records in the early 80s, and their smash hit, of course, We're Not Gonna Take It. So, JJ, if you're out there listening, thanks for a great interview last night, and I hope you enjoyed tonight's offering. Of course, I hope everyone enjoys tonight's 2-hour conversation. Bruce de Torres is here. He's a very deep thinker. He's a writer, researcher, former actor, director, and he's about to take a deep philosophical dive into the false official narratives concerning JFK, MLK, RFK, 9/11, and much more. Bruce, as I mentioned, pursued a career in acting, directing, and performing lead roles in comedies, dramas, musicals, after getting his Bachelor of Fine Arts degree. And then Bruce decided to write a book about energy consciousness and the nature of reality. 9/11 happened along the way. After years of research, he incorporated it and similar things into God, School, 9/11, and JFK, the lies that are killing us and the truth that sets us free. Hey, Bruce, welcome. How are you, my friend?
I'm really great and honored to be here, Richard. I appreciate the warm welcome and overcoming the little struggle of my being able to hear everything 2 seconds before we go live. So it's great to successfully hear you.
Isn't live radio wonderful? I call it just-in-time delivery.
Well, in this case, it certainly was.
So I'm interested in your background, Bruce. Acting, musicals, directing, well into your 30s, I guess. All you wanted to do. And you talk about how I guess you came to the realization that your job as an actor wasn't just to deliver your lines. It was about paying attention to your scene partner and listening intently, and then listening so intently that your performance was based on your reacting to what they were saying. So how did that set the stage? How did that create this perfect storm that led you off in this entirely different trajectory in your life and ultimately writing God's School, JFK, and 9/11 and JFK?
Well, I started paying attention in real life the way that I had learned how to do it on stage, and was shocked by just the miscommunications, my immaturity. I functioned well. I had day jobs in different offices. That's how I supported myself 9 to 5, and I did all the acting in the evenings and on the weekends. And my friends loved me, and I probably seemed like a wonderful guy to a lot of people. But that learning how to really pay attention to my scene partner, and then the folks in my life. In my mid-30s, early 30s, I had discovered just all my rackets and habits of immaturity and manipulation and emotional dysregulation, it's called, and immaturity, Richard, just really in a nutshell. And it brought everything to a grinding halt. I still went to work. I still acted in some things, but did a big spate of soul searching and really was despondent and really, really was ready to give up completely, even life. And then I decided to stick around just to see what would happen next. I thought, okay, maybe I'm wrong about even this, the idea that I'm hopeless, that my life was hopeless. I really, really was burning in regret and self-recrimination, just self-hatred at what I thought was foolishness, just foolishness. So,
but you were filled with such self-loathing because what, you thought you were disingenuous?
Yeah. Well, I was manipulative like a child. In my personal relationships, you only hurt the ones you love. I could function at jobs, and I could go to auditions and win parts, and I could successfully, be cheerful and, get plays going until, people wanted to use me as the lead in play after a while. This is all off Broadway, non-paid stuff, but I was also getting on television and things like that. But just in my personal life, Richard, with the people closest to me, I had seen, looking back in my 20s and college and high school, I felt I was an idiot. I just felt that I had been a fool, and thought I would have been a lot more farther along in my life had I been more mature, if I had been more considerate, had I been more just all the simple things that I saw was possible when I could now look in someone's eyes and really hear them and regard them and take them in. So that's really it. That's really it was a real brick wall I
right.
had hit.
But the thing is, you caught yourself, Bruce. You realized that you weren't doing that, and it sounds like, at least in your performances on stage, you said, "Well, no, I need to pay attention to my scene partner." And then you caught yourself, and you needed to do that in real life. Why wasn't that, when you started, I think you used the term melding and bonding and merging with your scene partner, and then trying to do that in real life? Why wasn't that enough for you? That, hey, I'm trying. I'm going to correct this. Were you finding you weren't able to do that in real life?
I got to all that you just described, and you just described how I enjoy my life now. But for about a year and a half, I just was burning and churning with the regret and the recrimination of the missed opportunity for 30 years to have loved and enjoyed my family, my relationships, my friends, the way that I could now on stage. To pay attention to someone like that, as I'm trying to pay attention to you in this conversation, trying to pay attention like that to every moment of my life is a joy. It's a challenge, but it's a joy, because what I contend and like to claim and get people thinking about is when we experience what's real, which means what's present right here, right now, it's love and it's joyful, which is what meditation takes people to, which is what the poets take people to, which is what physicists even, well, they don't call it love, but they do say, wow, it's conscious, and our intention certainly influences what we experience, perhaps completely. And right there was the turning point, because after the months and months of despair and life review, why did I do that? Why did I do that? Why didn't I just surrendered? Okay, I'm going to take it one day at a time, probably like an alcoholic recovering and saying, I know nothing, and I'm going to surrender to a higher power and just trust.
Right.
At that moment, a friend gave me, just for whatever reason, the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved it. And it's a very metaphysical book, and it teaches thoughts become things. Thoughts are made out of energy, and they become things. Everything's made out of energy. And if we can conceive it, we can create it. So I thought, okay. And it also felt exactly kind of the influence people can have on each other that I felt on stage, and then also in real life, when we pay attention to what causes what, how we regard each other. I wish that, I could see you on camera. I can't right now. It'd be fun to see how, you're looking at me, I'm looking at you, and I could take into consideration, how you're hearing me and how I'm hearing you. You get the point. You're a professional conversation. You get the point more than most. Conversationalist. Okay. Think and grow rich. Okay. Thoughts become things. Everything's made out of energy. I thought, all right, what could I create that'd be worth $1 million? Okay. As an actor, you never have any money, so sometimes you think about things like that. And I thought, well, what do people value? Well, we value what helps us live. We want to exist. And just that simply, Richard, the next question I asked myself was, well, is that why energy burst into existence supposedly 14 billion years ago in the Big Bang to become the universe and everything in it, including you and me in this moment, because it wanted to? Is energy the intention to exist? Is the intention the ability? And that's why we get thoughts, because everything's also got gravity or attraction. So my question, why did this happen, will attract all these answers. If you ask this question, why did that happen? Or how is my life terrible, will attract a million infinite answers to that question. Or why is my life wonderful, will attract infinite answers to that. So my mind was blown, Richard, by this concept of infinite power and also infinite responsibility. that we everything is made out of the intention to exist. So can we create whatever we want? And and all at once, it jived with what I loved about all the writers, all the fiction, all the poetry I had written, that I had read my whole life, because I was a lifelong reader from a very, very early age. And it also felt like it described what I was experiencing on stage, following the impulses and the speeds and volumes of my scene partners. And it worked for me. And also I started reading about energy according to physics and discovered quantum physics, and all those ideas about the presence of the observer in influencing and determining what the observed becomes. Many students of quantum physics say there's no place where you stop and the rest of the universe begins. Everything's influencing everything. And I got a big aha, wow, I can write a book about that. And I started researching and reading all about energy, and quickly also at that time discovered the writings of Ralph Waldo Emerson, the transcendentalist from the 1800s. And I'll name Rumi, the Persian poet, and Khalil Gibran, and all the esoteric, all the mystical, magical writings, the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, the Eastern traditions, all the Zen traditions, Richard, are all describing what I'm trying to describe right now, that this is something of an illusion. There's only one of us here. We're pretending to be separate people, moving sequentially through this thing called time, when in actuality, like Deepak Chopra says, in reality, everything happens all at once. But in time and space and in this 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional realm, we see things sequentially. So that really turned me on to write about that, and I started doing that, and I did that for years. And this
book that we have now in front of us, God, School, 9/11, and JFK, The Lies That Are Killing Us and the Truths That Set Us Free, started out as simply a book about energy and consciousness and the nature of reality.
Exactly.
So we're rolling into it. We're rolling into a break here in a couple minutes. We'll just start this part of the conversation now, and then once that music starts to percolate up, we'll take a break and continue after. But then, how did it go from that book about energy and consciousness and the nature of reality into an examination of all of these official narratives and this brief history of the United States that you take us through in this tome?
No, that took years, because I had written and developed, and I can't hear the music. If you're hearing, I can't hear it.
Not yet. I'll let you know.
Okay, good. Thank you. I had thoroughly written over the course of almost 10 years all about energy and consciousness and identity, because that's a huge component of that whole package of thoughts. And I had drafted up to 200 and some pages, and then, Richard, I crushed like a snowball. And my metaphor was also crushing it like a diamond. And I didn't want to say what others had said really, really well in many, many other books. So after 9 years or so, I had 39 pages. I had 41 pages, something like that. And in 2004, I met a fellow who said, 9/11 is not the official story. Muslims had nothing to do with it. You really need to look into it. And that's the first I had heard of anything like that. So I started looking into 9/11, and I had my mind blown, because to pull those threads apart, and I guess the sequence was, very quickly I found David Ray Griffin's books, especially his first one, The New Pearl Harbor.
Right.
I found Loose Change on YouTube. I found Zeitgeist by Peter Thomas, I think his name is, or Thompson. And he had a piece of Loose Change, and he had a piece about Christianity and Zeitgeist, and then he had a piece about the Federal Reserve. So I studied the Federal Reserve. And again, just another mind-blowing fields of fascination for me. So
Right.
I started,
or a swamp, or a swamp, depending on. I mean, you can get lost in there, can't you?
well, yes, absolutely, absolutely. And to share that with the folks in your circle is quite adventurous. Now that I was at that time, I wasn't acting anymore, and but I was going every Wednesday night to an open mic night at a divey little bar. I was living in Atlanta at the time, and they had singer-songwriters. Everyone had 15 minutes, but they also let spoken word. So from the mid-90s to the mid-2000s, every Wednesday night I was talking about energy and unity and the holographic nature of reality, and this is all an illusion, and there's only one of us here. And
Hey, Bruce, I got to jump in. Pardon the interruption. We're going to take a quick time out. We'll come back. We'll go back to that divey bar in Atlanta. Bruce Torres is with us. God, School, 9/11, and JFK, the lies that are killing us and the truth that sets us free. Back with more after these. Here's a resolution for 2021. Reduce stress and enhance your immune system. ESS 60 from C60 Evo. C60 is the carbon 60 molecule known to deliver more than 172 times the power of vitamin C. 172 times. ESS 60 is the purest form of C60, a known antiviral, antibacterial, and anti-inflammatory remedy that works. ESS 60 neutralizes free radicals from cell metabolization and external toxins to help minimize inflammation and maximize detoxification. Further, people report better sleep, more energy, and renewed mental clarity when they take our ESS 60 organic oil. To order your miracle molecule ESS 60, go to c60evo.com/Richard-Serrett. c60evo.com/Richard-Serrett. Buy now and save 10% by using the coupon code EVRS at checkout. Again, use the coupon code EVRS at checkout.
Stone walkways and a covered patio turn your backyard into a garden retreat, a design that comes with endless fresh air for outdoor entertaining.
Are you ready for more living space? Choose your design details during a socially distant visit or on a Zoom video call.
Paul Napolitano and Royal Home Improvements, building trust since 1969, where CART members can pay no tax. Start your project now.
Call 416-236-4400 or visit royalhomeimprovements.ca.
Big Brother is listening, and so are you. To The Conspiracy Show with Richard Serrett from Zoomer Radio. To speak with Richard, call 416-360-0740 or toll free 1-866-740-4740.
Welcome back. Bruce Torres is here. Former actor, director, performer, and now researcher, writer, deep thinker, and the book is God, School, 9/11, and JFK, the lies that are killing us and the truths that are setting us, or that set us free. The website, incidentally, is brucedetorres.com, and I've hooked up to his website at strangeplanet.ca. Just click on Bruce's name, it'll take you right there. So you're kind of doing what, like a kind of a Lenny Bruce or Dick Gregory kind of routine. You're just speaking truth to power at this divey bar in Atlanta, Georgia, talking about the nature of reality. How did that go over, by the way, with the crowd on open mic night?
Oh, it was always a blast. I'm very comfortable on stage, and at first it was a whole new way to be on stage because I was used to having other people up there and more or less ignoring the audience, but not ignoring the audience. It was a bit of a transition to learn how to speak to a crowd, and so. But I got looser and looser and had more and more fun, so that everyone had fun, and. That was really gratifying because that was a huge challenge after being on stage in a different way, in plays. So it was very much like stand-up comedy and just improvising. But I would often prepare great notes about what I would talk about, and that was all about the energy and the consciousness and all that other stuff that we talked about before. And then after 2004, when I started researching 9/11 and the truth behind the scenes and who really pulls the strings and how the world really works, I started talking about that every Wednesday night. And then in 2011, it was the 10-year anniversary of 9/11. So I prepared 7 nights, 7 Wednesdays in a row, a real thorough, nice teaching about 9/11, getting all my ducks in a row. And for the first time writing, organizing my thoughts about that. 2 years later, it was the 50th anniversary of President Kennedy's assassination in 2013, and I did the exact same thing. 6 or 7, writing about, organizing that. And then in 2014, after 10 years of researching how the world really works, is when I got the idea that my ideas about energy, consciousness, the real us, were empowering solutions, and the truth about these horrible events were solutions to the lies that they are. Hence, the 4 main topics of my title and the subtitle, the lies that are killing us and the truths that set us free. Because it seemed like, okay, it's not just complaining about the truth about organized religion and the mind trap that is, and school is a big chapter, and what a trained obedience school is, and 9/11 and JFK. These are depressing. These are, but the solution is the reality of those events, knowing the truth about those events, so we don't get suckered by more lies, and we don't go kill more innocent people because we believe they're really enemies who attacked us. And also, if you embrace these ideas about reality are not my ideas about reality. They're not just spiritual ideas about reality. One could just look at what quantum physics says about reality, consciousness, the holographic nature of perception, and get equally as empowered that our thoughts and intentions matter. They dictate form and give us what we experience, and we can use that power for love and creation and sharing joyful existence together, or fearfully competing with each other and stepping on each other to get ahead, and not caring how we hurt others as long as we get ours. So that's what I put together in my book. And then in early 2020, I submitted it to Trine Day Publishing, which is run by Chris Milligan, whose books I had been reading. And he took it on. He said he couldn't publish it till 2021, so I had a year to write a new chapter called COVID-19 all last year. And my book came out just this past spring, and I've been really gratified to ask people to read it whose books I'd read, who I really respected, and have gotten a ton of great reviews, and have been interviewed a lot because it's my first foray, out as an author.
Right.
And I had hopes that it would resonate with intelligent people and lo and behold, it has, and here we are, and it's fun.
So let me take it back to Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, which kind of we kicked off the conversation with. Thoughts become things because they're made out of energy. So when we look at 9/11, and maybe a little bit later, we just passed, or a few weeks past the 20th anniversary, and I want to go back to maybe kind of a laundry list. That sounds like a kind of a callous way of putting it, but a laundry list of some of the lies that you uncovered regarding the official narrative. But getting back to Napoleon Hill, the idea that thoughts become things because they're made out of energy, does that suggest, or does that lead us then to understand that we are all complicit in things like 9/11 or a political assassination, because all of our thoughts are energy, and and we are manifesting these things?
Well, broadly, yes, according to Bruce. Okay. And we would have to sit at a campfire for hours to parse all you've given us to different ways of looking at the example you just framed. Briefly and succinctly, it's fun for me to imagine that my life is a maturity test. That's all it is. And to apply the idea that there's only one of us here along these lines, that, also in light of the thousands of people, Richard, who have died and been revived and described a beautiful, love-filled experience that they say was more real than this existence. It's empowering to me as an individual, and I spend most of my time alone with myself, like we all do, to imagine that I'm an eternal spirit, and I have no memory of what I was before I was born in this human life. I have an idea of what happens afterwards because of folks who've died and come back. And if there's only one of us here and everything is an illusion and it's a maturity test, then I can't help anyone and I can't hurt anyone else but myself. I can't love anyone without loving myself. I can't hate or be mad or have a grudge against somebody else, because to some extent this is an illusion. To some extent, Richard isn't talking to Bruce. Richard is talking to himself. You are the one and only spirit that exists. Okay, so to get this more grounded, I gotta ask. I can't go farther without asking. Did that make sense? Did you follow me that far? And then we can. I want to.
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult concept for a linear thinker like myself, But which is why I love speaking to deep thinkers like yourself, because you make me, expand my perspective on these things. It does make sense, but it's still difficult. You can understand it at a certain level, but to really comprehend what that all entails is, it's pretty mind-blowing. We'll just give me a minute to settle down here and think about it some more. We'll take a time out and come back with Bruce de Torres. Stay with us right here on The Conspiracy Show.
Peering into the shadows where the truth often hides. You're listening to The Conspiracy Show with Richard Sarrett from Zoomer Radio.
Hey there, I'm hard at work on another edition of Inner Sanctum, my free monthly newsletter. Inner Sanctum features my monthly brief, a column of my thoughts and opinions on what's happening in the world. It features a spotlight on a past guest, a look ahead to an upcoming episode of my weekly syndicated radio program, The Conspiracy Show. It features a look at this month in conspiracy and UFO history, and my Conspiracy Unlimited podcast episode pick of the month, and so much more. To get your free monthly newsletter, Inner Sanctum, delivered to your email inbox, just go to my website, strangeplanet.ca, strangeplanet.ca. Scroll down to the bottom of the page and click on Inner Sanctum and register. It's fast, easy, and again, absolutely free.
Chin Giants. We ask that you take the news to your giant friends and families that the borders of Little Canada are now officially open. Giants of all sizes and ages can now experience a miniaturized version of Canada. Find out more by using your giant fingers to search Little Canada on your enormous electronic devices. We look forward to welcoming you and all the gigantic giants like you to Little Canada.
Mommy, look! I found a hat in the water. And there's a flip-flop. And what's that shiny thing? A can of beer. Ew! Oh my gosh. Can paddle? Mom, come see quick.
1 in 3 fatalities on our waterways is caused by impaired boating. Don't boat impaired. A message from Mad Canada. No alcohol, no drugs, no victims.
PIN numbers, passcodes, social insurance numbers. If they make you wonder how private they are, here's 2 more numbers. 416-360-0740 or toll free at 1-866-740-4740.
Bruce Torres stays with us for the full 2 hours, and delighted that he's going to hang out with us for this long. We need some runway to discuss some of these deep thoughts. So this idea, these traumatic events, I think you refer to it as a fright ride or something like that, that are happening, on this physical plane, and here we are spiritual beings having a physical experience on this plane. So everything that's happening on this plane, I guess it was Neil Bostrom talked about, the holographic universe or a digital simulation. It's a suggestion here that as these eternal beings, what's happening here right now, it's like a video game. In the end, we're all okay. No matter what happens here, we're all okay.
I'd like to think so. Karma and dharma are ideas that are discussed when these claims or concepts get discussed, that maybe it's not so scot-free. I'm intrigued by the idea of different dimensions, different universes, different realities. In one book I read about all this, Richard, they said, theoretically, based on the computations of quantum physics and how energy works, that there could be infinite dimensions. Okay. And every version of every event is always happening. Okay. Every version of our past, not only the version we remember, the version where we didn't get that girlfriend, the version where we remember we lost the game, but there's a version where we won the game. There's a version of the past where the South won the Civil War. There's a version of the past where John F. Kennedy wasn't assassinated. And to just see, maybe I don't. It's my mind, right? I get to think whatever I want. So if I want to think that all my heroes that I've ever read about, who look like they're dead, They're really alive. They're really surrounding us. They're really here all the time, as I've been here all the time, as you've been here all the time, eternally. The net result of these ideas, Richard, tangibly for you and I to deal with 2021 and the rest of our chronological years is simply this: to think thoughts that give us power, to think thoughts that give us power and make it wonderful to be you and I. And the thoughts that do that for me are not necessarily the thoughts that are going to do that for anybody else. But I wrote a book with my best thoughts in it, hoping that there's enough people out there who are going to say, thank God I found this book, because I'm getting a kick out of the way this guy looks at things, which is the smallest part of my book, because the big fat middle of my book, it's only 175 pages, is a litany of horrors. It's to teach people the facts about what organized religion is, and that's interpretive. That's my interpretation of what organized religion was intended and does to our minds in terms of scaring us and controlling us and manipulating us toward obedience to authority. And school does the same thing, big chapter. And the truth about 9/11 was self-inflicted by the U.S. government or elements thereof to justify more worship of authority and letting in more sacrifice of more of our rights. The truth about the JFK assassination. And as I examine those things, I go on a big tangent about the CIA, and I teach all I can about the background that I found of the banking and corporate forces that orchestrate these kind of events, that co-opted and took over the American government over the last 160 years, if not longer, definitely since the Civil War. And the secret societies of America, primarily, Skull and Bones, primarily, place people to manipulate and control our resources and our time, our energy, our attention, the things we're afraid of, and how we're trained to do and believe what is going on is the way that the mainstream corporate media is telling us in order to scare us, in order to control us. Like I say, all in 175 pages, and wrapped, bookended by, just my little journey, and then what's energy, and if there's only one of us here, and thoughts become things, we can, when more of us know that, love will find a way. And then at the end, I kind of wrap it up again with that to help us as adults, Richard, deal with the horrors.
Right.
And
What are your thoughts then on, given that I guess there is some level of, since there's only one of us here, which is kind of a central theme, this illusion of separateness, that there's just consciousness. And so there's only one of us present. And so there is we or the I, the us, are somewhat complicit in everything that happens here. What does that say then about the nature of good and evil?
Well, it asks big things about it. I'll refer to a big book called A Course in Miracles.
And you have 30 seconds.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Well, we're going to, on the other side, we're going to talk about A Course in Miracles and good and evil, and own it. We're going to own every intention, Is it to welcome and love and reassure and make ourselves and everyone who can hear our voice and be influenced by our presence feel safe and welcome and wanted and loved? Or are we going to harden in fear, think we can be hurt, and therefore hurt first? And that's the context in which we'll explore, well, what's good and what's evil? It depends on your purpose. Good for what or bad for what? What's your purpose? What's your intention? And do you want something for yourself that you don't want for everybody else? And that's the beginning of ego, is to think that I'm separate from anyone or anything, or from creation. That's also the alienation that hurts. And then I want revenge, because if I'm hurt, I want revenge. If I think it's my fault, I'll hate myself and I want to kill myself. If I think it's your fault, I'm going to hate you and want to kill you. So,
All right, much to ponder, Bruce. On the other side, we'll pick it up. Bruce de Torres stays with us. And the book again, God, School, 9/11, and JFK, the lies that are killing us and the truth that sets us free. More of this after these.
Fasten your seatbelt and put your tray in the upright position. You're about to leave everything you know behind on The Conspiracy Show with Richard Serrett from Zoomer Radio.
Hi.
I don't need to tell you how important building and sustaining a healthy immune system is these days. And just in time, my good friends at Get the Tea are offering a special package called the Immune Builder. You get 1 month's supply of Life Change Super Tea. That's 8 bags. 1 bottle of Bioastin. That's 75 capsules. Now, Bioastin or astaxanthin is known as one of nature's most powerful antioxidants and provides a wide range of impressive health benefits. The Immune Builder also includes 1 bottle of Potent C Wild Alaskan Sockeye Omegas. That's 90 gel caps. And 1 copy of the book Natural Astaxanthin, Hawaii's Super Nutrient by Dr. William Sears. There's so much more than tea at getthetea.com. Get your Immune Builder right now. Not available in any store. Use the code UNLIMITED and all your purchases ship for free. The Immune Builder from getthetea.com.
Longevity Pension Fund from Purpose Investments, the first income for life mutual fund for Canadians in retirement. CARP members get a 15% reduction in the annual management fee. Not yet a member? Sign up online and start saving in minutes. Go to carp.ca. That's carp.ca. Money you didn't know you had? Well, now you know.
This fall, Yes TV is your home for television's biggest shows and brightest stars.
There's nothing else quite like it.
Whether it's new favorites or Canada's classics, you
On Yes TV. The best is yes to come. Fun and anybody can watch it.
Google listings or visit YesTV.com for full details.
Providing the evidence and letting you draw your own conclusions. This is The Conspiracy Show with Richard Serrett on Zoomer Radio.
Bruce, we were talking about, well, the nature of good and evil, given that, we are the manifestation of our intention to exist. So I guess we have 100% responsibility for everything that we cause and create. So then leading us back to that question, what does that say then about the nature of good and evil? I mean, there's no separateness, right? We can't say that, okay, we are the sheep that are being preyed upon. We are the victims of these powerful cabals or secret societies. We have the white hats and they have the black hats. It's not that simple then, is it?
no. And it's worthy of infinite exploration, conversation, speculation. You and I could talk about this for 2 hours tonight and then talk about it again tomorrow for 2 hours and really, look at it in a whole different way. But to not dodge, the question, Bruce, what is good, what is evil, and how, I'm going to stand on the strength, the satisfaction it gives me to take responsibility for everything that I'm experiencing every second. So something like 9/11 happens, okay, and that's evil, okay. I want to know who did it, okay. I've got righteous indignation for and desire for justice about that, out of empathy and horror for the people who died. I would love to see the perpetrators locked up and then have an honest judicial process have its way with them, okay? I don't pretend to know what their punishment should be. I don't pretend to I know that I don't know if they deserve the death sentence. I certainly want them locked up for the rest of their lives, whoever they might be. So I'm not saying that those things aren't real. Those things haven't happened. But when you look at the ideology and ideologies that seem to fuel the folks who you can find, if not personally their names, the factors and the forces that are behind such things. For example, the good folks who've matriculated through Skull and Bones. There's not all of them, just like everyone at the CIA isn't complicit in its crimes and horrors. There are factions, there are need to know, there's compartmentalization. But a lot of these, the elite of the elite, who you really can implicate in a lot of horrors and a lot of evil, they've got very esoteric, occult / spiritual rituals, practices that indicate their beliefs. It's tough to say what someone's belief is. You can only deduce it from the evidence our senses can glean, their behavior, their habits, their actions. And for all I know, they are simply acting out of exactly what I've embraced as a rather delightful, life-loving idea that this is all an illusion and it doesn't matter what you do. I'm not that extreme because I don't advocate. I don't say that justifies harm to anybody or selfishness.
No, because that could be a reckless, viewpoint that nothing matters here. This is a simulation. It's a game. In the end, nobody gets hurt because people do, at least on this physical plane, obviously. So yeah, we can't go down that road necessarily and look at it just as this, it's thrills, it's shocks, it's it's like a scare house or a haunted house on the Midway or what have you. Anyway, go ahead. I interrupted.
No, it's all that too. It's I say it with such certainty as if I got the tablets off of these are ideas that I assert because of the fun and the power that they give me. And in my book, I've got 46 pages of sources for every one of these topics, including a nice long list of all these lovely, starting with the Bible stories of how to look at things very philosophically, very poetically, very esoterically, and things like that. And the first chapters in my book help anyone address these things, Richard, because it's all about why do I think what I think? Why do we think what we think? And I submit it's by habit. I submit that's the reason most folks do most of what they do. And the extreme of these esoteric ideas, which I'm bantering about so glibly here, like, oh, it's so obvious. No, it's not obvious. It takes a lot of thinking and reading and pondering and to be comfortable enough to try to describe this. And I just submit to you, Richard, just how most folks, because there are people with incapacities and there are people who are insane. There are people with habits of negativity and cynicism and worrying who can't do what I'm about to describe. Most folks, however, enjoy nature. Most folks can enjoy being in the countryside or on the beach and watching children play and hearing the seagulls overhead and seeing the beauty of the sun coming through the flowers, and take a deep breath and watching animals play and interacting with a child or a baby or an animal, a puppy or a kitten with just the right music, and be transported into ecstasies that reveal to us wow, there's a lot more going on than just what's on television tonight or just the horrors in the headline news. And that's the whole access to spirituality that I would submit to anyone to dabble with. And this goes back to my aha on stage, looking in the eyes of my scene partner and trying to bond and connect quite intentionally. It's falling in love. And what all the poets and what all of our friends and neighbors and relatives have described about what falling in love is, that's the bonding and the experience that turns the key and inspires us to relate to all of life and every moment with that same experience or intention. And to have that happen once is enough hope for many folks to not give up when they are in the depths of despair because of this particular situation, that particular situation, because life goes on and there is that wonderful, loving stuff that we can experience. And yes, bad things happen, and yes, there are scoundrels out there who do horrible, horrible things. You can read all about it, folks, in my thing, because I hope, and I assert, and others have said this, and I embrace it, that something will happen when enough of us know the truth about these things. I spin that and say good things will happen when enough of us know. When enough of us know that our government has lied about things, done things and blamed it on innocent people, and have hurt and attacked and killed them, have used our monies to perpetrate horrors and evils. All the things you've explored for years with your many, many guests, Richard.
Right. Well,
it's quite something to be pontificating to someone such as yourself, who's well-schooled and well-versed.
Well, after 20 years, I don't know that I'm any closer to the answers. That's maybe the distressing part, or maybe it's not, because, as you point out, like Lennon and McCartney had it right. All you need is love, but it's not just some glib thing. I mean, there's a whole, like, when you talk about engaging with your scene partner, melding and merging and looking into their eyes, and what you're looking back at yourself, you're recognizing yourself, so you're loving yourself. And I guess as we approach hour two, something that we can pick up on the other side is then, if that is ultimately what we're striving for, then is, discussions about, was it nanothermite? Who changed the Kennedy parade route? Who had the power to do that? Where was there a second shooter on the Dell Tech building? Did LBJ actually confess to Madeline Duncan Brown, his mistress, that, he knew that they were going to kill Kennedy? All of those things. Is that not a distraction? Is that not a trap, maybe, in a sense, that takes us? It's almost, my friend Nelson Thal, who studied under Marshall McLuhan, and Nelson is a semi-regular on the program, says it's almost like counting blades of grass on the grassy knoll. It's like, where ultimately does that get us? But we'll pick up on all of those threads on the other side. Bruce Torres stays with us. Hour two of The Conspiracy Show coming up.
Providing the evidence and letting you draw your own conclusions. This is The Conspiracy Show with Richard Sarrett on Zoomer Radio.
This is Zoomer Radio Toronto, CFZM FM and CFZM AM, owned and operated by NZ Media Incorporated.
Live from Toronto, Canada, Earth. The Conspiracy Show with Richard Sarrett on Zoomer Radio.
Hey, thanks for inviting me into your home, your long-haul truck, RV, camper, taxi, your parents' well-appointed basement with the simulated wood paneling, electric fireplace, and the dogs playing poker. Your loft, that greasy spoon just off the interstate in your cabin in the woods. And hello to everyone listening in on our flagship station, AM 740 and 96.7 FM Zoomer Radio in Toronto. And hiya to each of you tuning us in on one of our affiliate stations. Hey there to those of you streaming us live on the Zoomer Radio app, which is fabulous, by the way, or on zoomerradio.ca. And those of you streaming us live on my YouTube channel, Strange Planet, and of course, all of you who hang out with us in the live chat on YouTube every week so faithfully. However and wherever you're listening, I bid thee the warmest of welcomes, and I thank you for your fine company. Hey, don't forget to check out my new weekday radio program. Well, not so new. It's been over 6 months. The Richard Sarrett Show, 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern on Saga 960 AM, heard across the GTA, AM 960. You can stream it live at saga960am.ca, and you can also stream it on the Simple Radio or TuneIn apps, and my podcast, Conspiracy Unlimited. New episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. ConspiracyUnlimitedPodcast.com, or just go to strangeplanet.ca. Everything's right there. Too many websites. Strangeplanet.ca. That's kind of the clearinghouse. Writer-researcher, former actor, director, Bruce de Torres is with us. His book, many years in the making, is God School 9/11 and JFK, The Lies That Are Killing Us and the Truth That Sets Us Free. Is that many years in the making, Bruce? I'm trying to remember whether it was it Einstein? He asked somebody, how long do you think it makes sense to bake an apple pie? And the person, they tried adding up. This is what I would do. Again, I'm a linear thinker. You'd add up, okay, so how long does it take to peel the apples? And then you got to make the crust, and then you got to put the filling in the crust, and then put the pie in the oven, and you add all of that. What, maybe 2 hours to bake a pie, Albert? And Einstein said, no, 14.5 billion years to bake that pie, right? It all begins with the Big Bang or what have you. Anyway, I guess that's my roundabout question of asking, how long did it take to write that book?
Wow. I began it in 95. It came out in 2021. So what's that? 26 years.
Wow.
There were a number of years where it was fallow, where it was just lying in a drawer. And that's when I was researching the horrific events. So, and then it was a crash from a marathon from 2014 to 2021 to finish it, getting up early, staying up late. And it was transformative. I'm on the other side. I'll never work on something that hard again. I don't know if I'll ever write another book again. And it's just,
I guess kind of using Einstein's model, not necessarily going back to the Big Bang, but I guess every from the moment you were born, every experience you had, every conversation you had, every painful event, every joyful event, all sort of contributed, I guess, to the writing of the book, in a sense.
Yes, because the impetus was the solution to being a human that it was for me, the original idea, like we talked about in the first hour, which is, energy is the intention to exist. The intention is the ability. Everything's made out of energy. And we're all here because we wanted to be, whether we were the original impetus to exist that burst into existence as this universe, which is just a theory. We don't know that's how the universe started. Or if we're the one and only eternal spirit who's pretending to be other people. There's one hand up, all these puppets. We're all different puppets, but we're the same infinite ocean of consciousness and love. Or if we're individual eternal spirits, regardless, the joy of imagining I'm here because I wanted to be, everything I experience is coming to me from the real me. For years, Richard, the working title of my book was The Real You and All You Create. So if lightning strikes a tree right now and crashes through this roof and ends this conversation, and I've got to deal with that, anyone, especially immature child, would freak out and think it's a catastrophe. Oh, Richard will never have me back on his show. And, oh, I worked so hard to woe is me, woe is me. But I'm here to tell you the fun and the power that I have imagining I want everything that happens. Life is a maturity test. And if I trust it, the real me, the 99.99999% of reality that's really, really me, this eternal spirit, I won't fret, because the conclusion that works for me and many other wise ones who I learned a lot from reading and talking to, by owning everything and not rejecting anything, we remain whole. We remain all we can be, and then we have, we can have some peace and pleasure, even as I have to get a saw and take care of this tree that just came through the roof.
Okay, so getting back to what we were discussing just before, God forfend that a tree comes crashing through your roof. But that's a great way to approach things. I am prepared for everything. I am prepared for everything. So. I think you talk about that this world and this life is all about fear management. We can come back to that, but I wanted to pick up on all of those. I kind of knocked a can of worms over before the top of the hour there, and that was whether pursuing all of these threads, let's say with 9/11 or JFK. I mentioned nanothermite and who was Ace Elevator and what were they doing at the World Trade Center towers, and were those planes or were those holograms, or a million, and you've been over 10 years of obsessing on this, you've covered it all, I'm sure, and read it all. But in the end, isn't that all just a distraction? Isn't that, as my friend Nelson Thal says, counting blades of grass on the grassy knoll, because you're kind of losing sight of the picture that, again, this is school, this is a learning experience, and it's all all you need is love.
Yeah, we see a lot of folks who get obsessed with that minutia. By the way, quick question: can you see me on the video stream, Richard?
I can, yes, and there is no tree crashing through.
Thank
No
goodness.
tree. Yes, I can
No,
see
that
it.
helps me know, that you can see how I'm listening and et cetera, because I can't see you. As I was outraged by the truths I found about 9/11 and then the Federal Reserve and everything else, I was really angry. And but I was also very motivated. That's me. But in studying it, I got a feel for, okay, I've looked at that particular question long enough. I have to come back and look at other things. There's only so many blades of grass you can count on the grassy knoll for me. And especially after 2014, when I realized, oh, I'm not just studying this for my own obsession, because that's why I was studying it, for my own conviction. And then I must have reached a point where I was so convinced that I thought, I'm going to dare to try to publish a book because I'm so certain about what I'm going to put in there, and I'll put in enough of the sources so that I won't wilt when scrutinized about, where'd you get that, or why are you claiming that, or are you really sure about that? Because there's a lot of folks who could react like that, and I think the value, to count all the blades of grass, Richard, and to parse all the minutia. At some point, I would ask those folks, who's that for? Who are you doing it for? What good is knowing all that stuff if you're not going to try to educate folks who've been duped like we used to be when we believed maybe the mainstream stories? All this is only worth something if we spread, to me, just, spread the word about it, and not get, so lost. Here's a great point about, for instance, the question, were the planes that hit the towers real planes or were they holograms? This is a great part of my story. Last year, as I was writing my COVID-19 chapter, my publisher said he wanted to start a podcast, and I offered to help. And he asked me to introduce each episode, and then I volunteered to edit each episode, and we just do an audio. We capture it on Zoom, and we do an audio. So every week for the last 50-some weeks, Chris has interviewed his various authors. He's published 120 books in the last 20 years about these kind of things. And he's been studying this stuff for 50 years. Do you know Chris Milligan's story,
I do.
Richard?
Yes, I do know Chris. Yeah. A lot of his authors have been through here over the last 13 years.
Okay. Do you remember him telling how he first heard about conspiracies and things like that?
It had to do with his dad, I think.
Yeah. When Chris was 20 years old in 1969, his father told him, he knew his father had worked for the CIA, but he didn't know any details. And then he learned a lot. His father told him a few core things. Fast forward to the point I was starting to make. Whether they were planes, whether they were holograms, Chris warns people constantly that there are tons of different forces and entities and factions and nationalities and intelligence agencies and just troublemakers and moneymakers who are fire hosing all kinds of misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation to drive us crazy, to get us to take sides so that we can be divided and conquered. And Chris, jumped into 9/11 Truth immediately after it happened, and he started seeing how suddenly ideas were introduced, like the planes were holograms, and a lot of that, Richard, here's the point, is fed into the research in order to split people off. A lot of it could be agents provocateur, undercover spooks who come in with these different slants to drive us nuts and have us arguing about, was there a suicide pilot in JFK Jr.'s plane? Or like Damon Issei really seems to prove a bomb probably went off back at the tail, and that's why the weight of the plane went straight down. No suicide guy would do this. So if we could be arguing about, where were the shooters at Dealey Plaza, we're wasting our own time, and that serves the ghouls who did it. So that's an orientation to take,
right. I think we talk
of salt.
Yeah, we talk so much about means, methods, and that's important, I guess, but maybe we need to talk more about motivation, opportunity.
I love framing it like that, Richard, because what I love doing as I'm practicing how to talk about my book, because I've talked about it to friends and family for years, but now this is the first time. Hey, nice to meet you, Bruce. What's your book all about? And I love describing regular Americans or any citizens as members of the jury. And you can grow up your whole life believing the government and mainstream media's story about something. But people who write books like mine and people who have shows like yours, we're showing the other side of the story. It's kind of like, you have to hear the defense. You can't just hear the prosecution's case and think you know what's going on and think you're qualified to cast a verdict of whether or not that's what happened or not. You have to see the other side. So you just gave an example of listing, like, at what point do you have enough facts to to share them with someone, to inspire them to say, you know what, there's so much smoke there. I want to look into that. And that's a tactic I really, really embrace. Like, how do we sift and sort? All you could know about JFK or all you could know about 9/11, it's like, well, probably enough to inspire one to do their own research, kind of see like, wow, it's really credible. You could say the same for the virus for the last year and a half. There's a lot of folks who just believe hook, line, and sinker what their politicians and what their medical authorities have been telling them, and not seeing or believing the doubt and the pushback because they haven't seen enough or done the research for themselves to imagine, wow, there's enough counterbalance there that I'm going to stay neutral until I know enough to dare to indulge in the luxury of a belief about any of these topics. Folks, have a little humility, have an open mind. You get the point I'm trying to say there. I think I
absolutely.
absolutely.
I think with this pandemic, and I always have to preface it, of course, the virus is real and people are dying and people are getting sick. It's the overwrought, response that I think is certainly worthy of a lot more examination. But I think finally, hopefully, we have because it has been so, the overreach has just been ridiculous, that I think people are finally now waking up, because the media doesn't even try and pretend anymore that they're being biased or that they're being non-biased and objective. It is so out in the open now. What was it, Orwell, who talked about how tyranny rules by fraud and by force, but once you expose the fraud, all they have left is the force, and that's where we're at now. I mean, if you look at Australia in particular, and here in Canada, my Lord, some of the images coming out of Vancouver at a restaurant where a man refused to provide a vaccine passport, and a 70-year-old man, and the police tackled him and slammed him to the ground. That's where we're at right now. It's naked and raw for anyone to see, the reaction to this, and that the way the media is cheerleading from the sidelines. I mean, their job used to be to give comfort to the afflicted and to afflict the comfortable. They're not even pretending to do that anymore.
Yeah, you summed up the urgency of shows like yours and publishers like Trine Day and folks who write books that try to address reality, because these are facts. The things in my book, the things your guests talk about, what the governments are doing, especially when you know a little history, you know that this is really bad. This is really, 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 really bad, and it's urgent to inspire more people to doubt the mainstream story, research the story, and do likewise, and encourage others to see, like, for whatever the medical reality is, which is completely unknown. Tangent, sidebar, the medical reality of the pandemic for the last year and a half is a cloud of shadows and mists and subterfuge and confusion and contradictions. Specifically, in my opinion, there's no accurate case numbers or death numbers. We have no idea how dangerous or how harmless it might be, period.
Right. And the fundamental questions, masks, not masks. Now they just admitted the 6 feet, the 2 meters for social distancing. Where did that come from? Nobody knows. Well, somebody apparently just made it up. Just, some pretty fundamental questions right from the get-go that were not really questioned. I wanted to ask you, while we're talking about COVID and this idea of collective responsibility. In other words, it's my responsibility to get vaccinated, to make you feel or someone else feel that they are free of risk. And I mean, I take great umbrage with that. I didn't sign up for that. I mean, I love my family, and I know we're supposed to love one another, but this idea of being free from risk, I think it was Matt Walsh, who has a terrific podcast. He's on the Daily Wire. He talks about that's like asking someone, you should be able to jump out of a building and be free of gravity, or to swim in shark-infested waters and be free of the risk of a shark attack. I mean, nobody has a right to be free of risk, right?
I completely agree, and it's to me, it's an example of an outrageous and egregious reach to see how much they can get away with, to see how much will comply, with. It's absurd. And those who've studied psychological warfare, psychological manipulation, who've studied torture, and have studied abusive relationships, explore the heck out of the mind games that an abuser will inflict on their victim. And it's synonymous with, in my opinion, these many different demands, unreasonable demands. Sure, theoretically, Richard, if it's theoretically possible, there could be some medical something that ever occurred, that could occur, that would satisfy your threshold of conviction or proof you would need to see, or I would need to see, to think theoretically that me staying away from you or me wearing a mask could protect you from an illness that I don't feel I have. So, but that goes back to what you said earlier about it's so obvious the fraud that's being perpetrated for kind of the first time ever. There's never been, in my understanding, asymptomatic. It doesn't exist. There are lots and lots of doctors who are censored, blocked, deplatformed. They're hard to find, who are pulling their hair out trying to make everybody know that
asymptomatic spread. Yeah.
You have to be sick. When you're sick, you're sneezing, you're achy, you're drool, your noses, you're running, you want to stay home, you've got aches and pains. That's when you're contagious.
Bruce, I got to take a quick time out. We'll come back and pick it up on the other side. Bruce to Torres, BruceToTorres.com, God School 9/11 and JFK. Back with more in a moment. Don't go away.
The owners of the system are asleep. Now we can play The Conspiracy Show with Richard Serrett from Zoomer Radio.
Here's a resolution for 2021. Reduce stress and enhance your immune system. ESS 60 from C60 Evo. C60 is the carbon-60 molecule known to deliver more than 172 times the power of vitamin C. 172 times. ESS 60 is the purest form of C60, a known antiviral, antibacterial, and anti-inflammatory remedy that works. ESS 60 neutralizes free radicals from cell metabolization and external toxins to help minimize inflammation and maximize detoxification. Further, people report better sleep, more energy, and renewed mental clarity when they take our ESS 60 organic oil. To order your miracle molecule ESS 60, go to c60evo.com/Richard-Serrett. c60evo.com/Richard-Serrett. Buy now and save 10% by using the coupon code EVRS at checkout. Again, use the coupon code EVRS at checkout.
There's no charge. We're prepared, you're protected. Look after yourself. Promise me.
Most people find it difficult to put a price on peace of mind. We use a calculator. Dave'sCornerGarage.com is giving away 5 car care packages from Crown
can tell all about it. The Conspiracy Show with Richard Sarrett on Zoomer Radio.
Writer-researcher Bruce Torres is hanging out with us for the full 2 hours. And the book again, God, School, 9/11, and JFK, The Lies That Are Killing Us and the Truth That Sets Us Free. We're talking about right now, kind of kicking the can around here, but we're talking about the pandemic. I'm wondering, kind of in a larger perspective, when we're looking at the reaction to COVID, and I look at Australia like the canary in the coal mine. That's, a liberal Western democracy, liberal that has turned very illiberal. And it seems like they're in, full bore tyranny right now. So the canary is dead. Is that where we're heading? But you look at the way authority there is dealing with, anyone who dares to push back or question the narrative. I mean, they're going to people's homes and dragging them out and so forth. It's trauma, like 9/11 was trauma, like seeing the President of the United States executed, in front of thousands of people, and then later on television, I guess, when the Zapruder film was finally released, millions and millions of people, mass trauma. And the perpetrators, who's ever behind any of these things, how much of that has to do with creating this kind of a ritual? Like if Kent Bain talks about 9/11 as a black mass, a ritual, an occult ritual, or JFK as the sacrificial king, these kind of myths and so forth. Do you believe that there is an aspect of that, a truth to that whoever orchestrates these things, whoever is behind these things, there is an occultic link. There is it's intended as a ritual, and I don't know, to appease some darker forces. I don't know.
I've come to learn that and give it great credence over the last year from books like Kent's. That 9/11 book is called The Most Dangerous Book in the World, 9/11 as Mass Ritual. And Trine Day just published, or it's coming out soon, a book called Royal Vengeance, the history of human sacrifice, the royals and human sacrifice. So yeah, Richard, I've learned tons that indicates exactly what you've just described, and it goes back to human sacrifices thousands of years ago in tribal cultures as a legacy kind of practice by the elite of the elite, still in charge, still in power, and history is replete with examples of false flags and just plain lies of kings and leaders starting real wars or just threatening, just broadcasting to their people, we're about to be attacked, therefore I need extraordinary powers, and all the scared people willingly give their government extraordinary powers, and they take the first fruits of the crops and the strongest men and the strongest horses and put spies among them and open up their houses, and it's absolutely fascinating. There's a new book called The Valediction, 3 Nights of Desmond by Paul Fitzgerald and Elizabeth Gould, talking about our duplicity in Afghanistan. And then they get into an esoteric story. Part 2 of their book comes out next year, and it's got to do with Paul as a Fitzgerald, related to the Fitzgerald and the Kennedy lineage of Fitzgeralds, and the Fitzgeralds going back 1,000 years, and the conflicts with royal families back then, indicating that the killing of President Kennedy was indeed the ritualistic killing of the king that Sarah Whalen's book, Royal Vengeance, describes quite thoroughly as a very powerful ritual and event, because it renews things have to die. That's an old tribal and sacrificial symbology going back to the beginning of time. It's barbaric, obviously, but
Right.
very specifically as to what to trauma-based mind control, trauma as the way to control minds in a society. I recently have been listing how at least every 20 years, but now much more frequently, there are these massive traumas. You could say that COVID is a massive, horrific, fear-inducing trauma. 20 years earlier, 9/11. 20 years earlier, you have a series of them in the 80s. You've got the attempt on Reagan. He survived. You have the Challenger explosion, which, if it wasn't an accident, it really slots in as an intentional trauma. There was a school teacher on board. The American schools, I don't know about Canada, put all their children in front of televisions to watch the Challenger space shuttle go up, and about a minute 19 or whatever into it, or 46 seconds into it, boom. 20 years before that, you had the Kennedy assassination, you had the horrors of Vietnam War, you had Martin Luther King, you had Robert Kennedy. Now follow me. It looks like every 20 years, every generation has to be terrified to surrender and into lockstep obedience to their governments. Because in the 40s, you had World War II. 20 years before that, you had World War I. In America, 20 years before that, you had a president assassinated, Garfield, in the 1800s. 20 years before that, you had Lincoln assassinated in the Civil War. 20 years before that, you had the Mexican War, which was really our first incursion and capture of empire and slaughter of innocents on that first scale. And then the MK Ultra, research. Yeah, trauma is the way to frighten someone into being your slave. And you can say that we are a traumatized planet now. It's what the Nazis did to Germany, I see happening to the planet by the same factors, forces, and factions that funded the Nazis. There's a great documented trail about how Wall Street and London built up the Nazis, built things for them, funded them, and built things for them through the war. It didn't stop when the war started. So
Right. Prescott Bush. Yeah.
Yeah. Ford, Rockefeller oil additives going to the fuel. Yeah.
But getting back to Kent Bain and the most dangerous book in the world, 9/11 as mass ritual, and he and others have documented this, the timing of these events and these occult symbols like calling cards and the dates that they choose, whether it's TWA 800 or the Lockerbie Pan Am 103 or Swiss Air or 9/11. And I suppose some might argue, well, if you look hard enough, you can make any connection, to any specific date and so forth. But I mean, there does seem, the more you look at it, there does seem to be something there with the timing of these things. It does seem like a calling card. And I guess my question then is that, again, the people who are behind these things, if there is this coordinated, coordination across centuries, who are they? For what purpose are they leaving these calling cards? Why are they making it happen on certain dates? Who are they trying to, or what are they trying to gain the favor of? I mean, are there some? Is there some darker spiritual force at work here that we're not aware of?
Well, there might be. Their practices indicate they believe that there are, and Kant, who writes under S.K. Bain, for folks who want to look him up, details in that particular book, 9/11 as a mass ritual, that such things serve the cult who implements them, that they're a Luciferian, black magic belief system, that it commemorates, and the more people who participate, the more energy is given to their effort. So everyone who watched the towers come down watched about 2,000, 2,500 people die. So we watched a slaughter. We watched a human sacrifice. So that had a lot more energy to the folks who pulled it off than if they took 2,500 people to a field and killed them without millions of people watching. Richard, isn't that intense? And it's Kent fairly proves that 9/11 by lining up in his book how so much of the new numbers from the flights 11 and 175 and United 10 and 77 chart very, very accurately a lot of the numbers in Aleister Crowley's, one of his major tomes, praising, Lucifer and his whole Luciferian, belief system. So the folks who inflicted 9/11 on the world, it can't be a coincidence that it's lined up with that high priest Crowley. And,
it's almost like the entire thing was an homage to Crowley to a certain extent. Got to take another time out, Bruce.
Sure. Yeah.
We'll come back and chat some more. Stay with us.
Right.
In a democracy, we elect officials so we can sleep at night. So why are you up? 416-360-0740 or toll free at 1-866-740-4740.
Hey there, I'm hard at work on another edition of Inner Sanctum, my free monthly newsletter. Inner Sanctum features my monthly brief, a column of my thoughts and opinions on what's happening in the world. It features a spotlight on a past guest, a look ahead to an upcoming episode of my weekly syndicated radio program, The Conspiracy Show. It features a look at this month in conspiracy and UFO history, and my Conspiracy Unlimited podcast episode pick of the month, and so much more. To get your free monthly newsletter, Inner Sanctum, delivered to your email inbox, just go to my website, strangeplanet.ca, strangeplanet.ca. Scroll down to the bottom of the page and click on Inner Sanctum and register. It's fast, easy, and again, absolutely free.
For less.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Pollock's Carpet Market is welcoming customers back to their store with very special welcome back prices.
The biggest deals on Rossesville.
On a huge selection of area rugs and wool duties.
Pollock's famous cocoa mats and runners.
Plus, luxury vinyl, tile, and carpet remnants, all at huge savings.
Welcome back to Pollock's Carpet Market.
Welcome back to great selection and prices.
See it.
Feel it.
Believe it.
Pollock's Carpet Market.
The Shaw Festival in Niagara on the Lake presents the fall and holiday season with something for everyone. Don't miss Eugene O'Neill's masterpiece, Desire Under the Elms, Charles Dickens' classic, A Christmas Carol, and Irving Berlin's fun-loving musical, Holiday Inn. This fall and holiday season, why not add some theater to your life? Book your tickets today. The Shaw Festival. Go to shawfest.com.
You're listening to The Conspiracy Show with Richard Sarrett from Zoomer Radio.
How you doing, Bruce? This is a long time to chat. Are you okay? You got water? You're good?
I'm fantastic. Yeah.
All right,
you.
good. I was thinking, I have been thinking actually, I've been doing this type of program at different, up and down the dial in Toronto for about 20 years now, almost without interruption. And one of the things that I am conflicted by, or that I regret, in all honesty, is that over the 20 years, and my views have changed, and we evolve or devolve, and sort of learn as we go. But if I have a regret, it would be that the body of work may have contributed to kind of an anti-American sentiment. The United States has become kind of, I think, a convenient punching bag. That America is the great Satan, which I don't believe. I mean, I think America was born as a great experiment. and is trying to live up to that. It hasn't always, and I'm distressed about things like the 1619 Project, which I think is just complete hokum. I just want your thoughts about, in this field of conspiracy, how it oftentimes leads to this idea that this experiment was never noble, that it was always about, well, as I mentioned, the 1619 Project. It's always about the evil empire and so forth. And if I have maybe contributed to that unintentionally, because I always have believed that America is a great nation and capable of redemption, which, every country has a dark past. Every country has oppressed. The history of the world is the history of displaced peoples and conquered peoples and so forth. And so, I don't know, it's kind of a huge mouthful, but what are your thoughts?
Well, I wrote a chapter called A Brief History of the United States in praise of the founding, in praise of the ideals in the Constitution and in the writings of the founders and in the concept of America and what the possibilities were as a place where the people could govern ourselves through our representatives. And we are horrifically captured and used and manipulated by really, really evil forces to evil intents right now. Aliens coming here and looking at us for the first time would say, okay, let's see what's going on. That country, America, while it tells its own people, that they're the good guys. Wow, isn't that something? So that's a fair, I think, assessment of reality right now. I think the salvation of the planet is personal. It comes from you, me, and every individual embracing the idea that we are sovereign, that life is sacred, that by virtue of being human beings, we are sovereign. We get to govern ourselves, and we have inalienable rights. And it's never been expressed better. It's never been put into the charter of a government better than the founding of the United States of America. And that only works for people who want to pursue life, liberty, and happiness. That only works if you, me, and enough other people dare to imagine that you can fight City Hall, that I can do something, no matter who I am, to make a difference. And whether it's writing a book, whether it's having a radio show, whether it's having tea parties where you show, loose change, or you show the truth about anything, it's to actively participate in the salvation of the planet, in turning your government around, turning my government around. I could go on and on about this, Richard, because I love it. It's the core of it. And if there weren't the hope that the tides could turn, if a greater percentage of any country's population could make a difference, if there wasn't that hope, I too might succumb to all the self-destructive habits and addictions that are consuming Americans. I don't know about the rest of the world. I believe it's not quite as epidemic, but Americans, as one college professor recently put it in an interview, these kids, college students, are in the fetal position, she said. They're filled with despair. They think there's a deadly virus out there that's going to kill them. They think the economy is disastrous. They think that there are no jobs. They think that life is hopeless, that they can't influence politics. They can't better themselves economically. This is America. So, and I've also heard others say that folks around the world are looking to America like, how you mentioned Australia succumbing to tyrannical despotism. I know that that's happening in many other countries in Europe. I know it's happening to a catastrophic degree, an extreme degree, worse in Chile, by virtue of what Whitney Webb has revealed about what it was like there and why she had to leave and relocate to the United Kingdom. Independent investigative journalist Whitney Webb. But if America can't stand up to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution, so there's great hope in living up to the ideals of the Constitution, but regular human beings have to want to self-govern and have to want to hold their representatives' feet to the fire.
Well, I think the last point before we break one more time, and that is, we talk about fear. You talk about fear management, and I think one of the greatest fears that people actually have is freedom. People fear freedom. It's hard work. We'll come back and discuss further. Bruce Torres stays with us.
Poking holes in the darkness. The Conspiracy Show with Richard Syrett from Zoomer Radio. To see the light, call Richard now at 416-360-0740 or toll free at 1-866-740-4740.
I don't need to tell you how important building and sustaining a healthy immune system is these days. And just in time, my good friends at Get the Tea are offering a special package called the Immune Builder. You get 1 month's supply of Life Change Super Tea. That's 8 bags. 1 bottle of Bioastin. That's 75 capsules. Now, Bioastin or astaxanthin is known as one of nature's most powerful antioxidants and provides a wide range of impressive health benefits. The Immune Builder also includes 1 bottle of Potent C Wild Alaskan Sockeye Omegas. That's 90 gel caps. And 1 copy of the book Natural Astaxanthin, Hawaii's Super Nutrient by Dr. William Sears. There's so much more than tea at getthetea.com. Get your Immune Builder right now. Not available in any store. Use the code UNLIMITED and all your purchases ship for free. The Immune Builder from getthetea.com.
Music DJ Erica M is joined by experienced educator Luke Combs to discuss the Inside Out Initiative. Co-founders of the program, part of this dream team is helping to empower youth to reconnect with their passion and purpose. Also on the program, 13-year-old singer-songwriter Toronto's own Mia Barron. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at The Bliss Minute and findingyourbliss.com. And join us this Saturday at 1 p.m. on Zoomer Radio.
You're listening to The Conspiracy Show with Richard Syrett from Zoomer Radio.
All right, a few minutes remain with Bruce Torres. Wow, where did the time go? Anyway, the book. How do we get a copy, Bruce?
At trineday.com, TRINEDAY.com.
God, School, 9/11, and JFK, the lies that are killing us and the truths that set us free. So we've kind of gone through the list of some of the lies that are killing us and the trauma, the enslavement. So just in the time that remains, let's go back to, the truth that sets us free. And we talked about that earlier in the program, that energy is the intention to exist. And, we manifest our intentions. This is the world that we've inherited. It is the culmination, I guess, of our intentions. So how do we turn this around? I mean, is it as simple as reversing this whole process and understanding that separateness is an illusion? I mean, it sounds, kind of, for some people, maybe a little new agey, and it can't be that simple, or that's too hard. I mean, what do we need to do to correct this?
Well, I was thinking, what you brought up about fear and overcoming fear just before this last break, and it answers the question you just asked. In my opinion, the greatest single thing anyone could do is to imagine they had a really loving mother who said things like, there, everything's all right. From your youngest age, you scraped your knee, there, everything's all right. You're crying, you're really upset, you're scared about something. There, everything's all right. Imagine you had that, and then you had that internalized. And you also had a very encouraging, empowering dad who said, come on, we got a lot to do today. We're going to make a mess. We're going to break things. We're going to fix things, but we got to take care of the animals. We have to build and repair that, and we got to be back in time for dinner. And talk to ourselves like that. If when more of us, Richard, talk to ourselves and each other like a really loving mom, there, everything's all right. We got this. And a really encouraging and empowering, confident father. You can do this. It's up to you. Doesn't matter if you do it wrong. The more you do it, the better you'll get at it. Because I submit, we talk to ourselves the way that our parents did. Even if we had no parents, or if we had a single parent. And most folks talk to themselves with very, very negative self-talk. So to understand how we talk to ourselves so that we could have some choice about how we talk to ourselves. Why do we think what we think? Why do we believe what we believe? It has to start with each person individually when they're alone with themselves. Are you addicted to video games? Are you addicted to social media? Are you addicted to alcohol and drugs? Are you addicted to your depression? Figure yourself out. Figure yourself out and see if reading my book, listening to Richard's other guests, whatever it takes to rouse yourself up to the big questions. Who am I? Why am I here? How do I want to feel? And what do I think a good life is? And how can I help? Because a split second, we want to give something, let alone a value. That's as fast as we have it. And that comes down to, that answers the last point you just made, Richard, about the esoteric new agey stuff. It's the classics. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Because we only have what we give. I'm leaning forward. I'm talking with enthusiasm. I'm trying to feel this. Richard and anyone who's listening, you're just the lucky beneficiaries because, and that sounds selfish, and I'm very excited to be here, obviously. This might be the biggest audience I ever get, Richard. It's such an honor to be on your show. I can't even begin to start talking about it because I'll sound like such a groveling kid, and I'm going to be 60 years old. I'm not a kid, but I'm still excitable. And
don't ever lose that. No, we can't lose that. I feel the same way. Every morning is Christmas morning.
Because you say so. We get to say that. We get to choose our thoughts and what we tell ourselves and tell each other.
Right. It's important that inner work you talk about, because a lot of people are running around. They want to change the world and correct other people. When we have this cancel culture thing and people wake up in the morning and they can't even make their own bed. And yet, they want to change other people. We have to look in the mirror. You got to change yourself. If everybody just focused on that, it sounds selfish maybe, but if you focus on yourself, that's how you change it, right?
Yeah, and then you squeeze an orange, you get orange juice. Okay, if a person's miserable and complaining and unhappy, you bump into them, what's going to come out? It's a lot of complaints, and even with their friends and family. So if you want to change the world, you want to make it any happier, friends, you gotta figure out happiness first. Just because, like I said earlier, we are with ourselves most of the time. So and this is obviously very personal, and to be someone worth being with when you're alone, work on that, and then you can contribute something, but just to have a little humility and know that everyone is dealing with the challenge and the confusion and the mystery of being a human being, of positioning ourselves in this universe or in the family I'm in or in the job that I'm in. And if you think it's you against them, good night, nurse, and good luck. But if you think that, I am you and you are me, and another John Lennon lyric just right there expressing a lot of these ideas, I'm going to call them truths, which is gutsy because that's, what's true for me is true for me. I don't, you can't say what's true for anybody else. But you can compare notes and see, hey, most people enjoy puppies and kittens and children playing and good music and natural pastoral scenes. And yeah, I can make some grand sweeping claims about what's true. And there's not a second we have to lose, no matter how many seconds we have left. How many seconds do we have left, Richard?
We got about a minute. We have about a minute
We
to
can get a
fill
lot
with to jam. Yeah, information bombs and truth and love. Yeah, is it, to me, I don't know, it's the word happiness. People, I'm not happy. I got to find me. I got to get happy. Maybe to me, it's not about happiness. That's the byproduct, I guess. It's about maybe reducing suffering in the world, trying to reduce suffering, having purpose, having responsibility. And then maybe at the end of that, that's happiness. But I think maybe that is part of the problem. We're all running around trying to be happy.
It could be. The mystics and the gurus and the people who teach yoga and everything people do to handle and manage the stress that we're all under is it's important. And we're all under a tremendous amount of stress, and turning off the news and just figuring out how to enjoy being you every moment of the day is not too much to aspire to. It's just because it might be impossible. We can still aspire to it. Not to be so, generic in these platitudes, shoot for the stars, you might hit the moon. Life is worth living and enjoying. It's worth figuring out how to enjoy it. And then it's worth figuring out how to help others enjoy it too. And, the truth of who and what we are is the beginning of sanity. Because if we're not dealing with truth, Richard, we're insane, and insanity is seeing something for what it's not. It's thinking something is so that's not. To deal with reality is to be sane. And I submit that it's a reality that love is a vibration, only energy is real, and one can get that from many books, mine included, that what you think and feel radiates out infinitely, literally and physically. And as sensitive, vibrational beings, the more folks who love life and want to love life and want to calm down and just solve problems and get the facts, the better everybody's life will be.
That's a good place to start and a good place to finish. Bruce, I enjoyed hanging out with you immensely. I hope we can do it again sometime.
Me too. Thank you.
Bruce to Torres, God School, 9/11, and JFK. All right, my thanks to Carlos and Ryan, back next week with a brand new program. Hope to see you then. Good night.